All right. Hello. Hi, everybody. I don't know why the everything feels physically awkward today. Microphone feels like it's very much in the way. How's everyone doing? It's been a long week. It's been a good week, a fine week. It's just sort of a busy week. As I understand it, it is a busy time for everybody. And it's like that. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think it's the changing of the guards from winter to spring, and crazy week. Hello everyone. Yeah, so how are you? Like I asked, I want to know. Today is a fun episode. I didn't record an episode last week because I just really didn't feel like I had that much to talk about, and like I said, it's been a bit of a crazy time. But let me just adjust this mic for the 100th time. Okay, sure. But I'm very excited for today's episode because it's very sort of like, can't stop touching this. Okay. Because it's very, I don't know. We have a lot to talk about, okay? We're going to call it the AAA, and then we're going to go to the light phone conversation. AAA meaning acolyte, update on my acting classes, and a little bit about Apple. So that's what we're talking about. I hate this microphone today. I don't know how to sit. Okay, whatever, okay? We're going to move on. We're moving on. Star Wars, hey, you know, a new trailer dropped and it looks freaking amazing. I think The Acolyte has, like for many people, it's been one of my most anticipated projects from Star Wars over a long time, like probably more anticipated than Obi-Wan for me, which is obviously highly anticipated for a lot of people. But yeah, Acolyte's just like been up there. Okay, I'm very excited about that show, and the trailer did not disappoint. I feel like this is going to be one of the most refreshing things that we've seen from Star Wars in a long time. I just hope the writing's good. Like that's really all I care about. I honestly don't even care if the show looks kind of weird or whatever, which I don't think a lot of people are saying, but like something about like Star Wars aesthetic is so hard to like hit without making it look cheap, but without making it look super, super nice. Like it's a hard thing to do, I think. But anyways, I just hope it's written well. I want the Acolyte to be written well. I want to be able to like something about like watching when Star Wars is written well. And I know Star Wars is not known to be written well. Okay. George Lucas wrote them. So, I mean, the prequels at least that, yeah. So, I like it though when it is well written, and Andor is very well written. Like even if people don't like Andor, which is totally fine, I get it. It was well written, you know what I mean? And I would just love some good juicy writing for this show. That's my biggest hope. Everyone's hot in the show, so that's really good and important. I will say though, like I did go online to like see how it's being received, and it's so interesting because it was like definitely like a targeted hate campaign against it, like bombing of dislikes and like bombing of freaking comments, like hate comments and stuff like that. And like it's so crazy to me that like that's still happening. And I feel like Lucasfilm like definitely has a little bit of a problem on their hands, because instead of like these like nerds who are very upset and hate Star Wars but somehow continue to dunk on it and like be obsessed with it, but they hate it, so I'm confused. But instead of them like moving on and finding new things, they've just like become, I feel like they've become more and more radicalized. And I don't know how you deal with that as people who are just like making art within a franchise and trying to put it out, because it would be exhausting to just constantly be inundated with that kind of energy. And it's like, I almost wish they just like put out a statement to tell everyone to go fuck themselves. You know what I mean? Just to be like, you guys should fucking go touch grass and log off and stop watching Star Wars. We don't want you to watch Star Wars. That'd be great. Obviously they can't, but I just feel bad. That would suck. That'd be really hard. And it's also crazy because like a lot of them are talking about like Leslie Headland in a very specific way, and they're trying to sound like all righteous and like social justice warrior, like anti-Hollywood about it, but like they just sound stupid. So let me silence this phone that I'm still learning how to use. Anyways, Heart goes out to Lucasfilm. Sorry you had to deal with that. It is interesting because, though, I did go on Instagram to see how it was being received on Instagram, and those comments were very like, a lot of people were commenting like, Jesus Christ, this is so embarrassing for everyone commenting all this hate. Like, what are you guys talking about? Like, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. You guys look like clowns, like, for like being so upset about this. Like, just like accept the fact that maybe you don't like Star Wars anymore. And so that was really refreshing to see. It was really refreshing to see people be like, call it out. So I feel like, a few years ago, the fandom was very much like, I almost made a video about this, and I still could see myself doing a video about it, but it felt like the fandom of a few years ago was either very, very like super, super pro Star Wars and like all about the Disney acquisition and like all about the content and like all about inclusion and diversity and all this stuff, which is great. I also am for those things. So you're either in that camp or you're in the camp of like hate it, like want to get violent about it, that camp. And now it feels like there's a beautiful middle class emerging. And I almost made a video. It was called like the Star Wars middle class, Star Wars fandom middle class, but not in terms of like actual middle class, in terms of like not economically a middle class, but middle class in terms of like there is like a group of Star Wars people that I consider myself to be a part of that's a little bit more in the middle, that is critical but also likes it, and like when it hits, it fucking hits. You know what I mean? And it's kind of nice to see that middle group kind of like call out all this embarrassing behavior on like the hater side and be like, wow, you guys are really embarrassing yourselves. I mean, hopefully they'll take a note for it. But yeah. Anyways, maybe I don't know if I'd make that video now, but I could see myself talking about it because I do think it's like interesting in terms of like online spaces and fandom are so polarized that the middle fans really get left out. But then, if you're a middle fan like me, you like getting left out of that. I don't want to be dragged into that. So anyway, those are my acolyte thoughts on it. I cannot wait. And I am obsessed with Amandla Stenberg, just like as an artist, as an actor, as a very vocal person who like stands up for themselves, as a non-binary icon. Hello, Amandla. Let's get you on the show. Let me get my first acolyte scoop. Anyway, I can't wait for the acolyte. Like 10 out of 10. 10s across the board for the trailer alone, and I really hope it delivers, and I'm going to be watching it very optimistically, and yeah, I'll cover it on the podcast probably, unless it's like really good or really bad, and then I'll make a video about it. Anyways, okay, again, this is a personal journal podcast, so I do talk about myself, but I talk about myself in hopes that it creates conversation for other people, and in hopes that it provides people a backboard to like toss their shit onto and see what bounces back. And like, that's why we do it. Not just because I'm obsessed with myself. I think I'm obsessed with myself a very healthy amount. I started acting class. It feels really good. Feels a lot better than I thought it would. Like a lot better than I thought it would. And it's been very interesting. I forgot how much like of your like real world stuff can come up in an acting environment. And I don't like everything I see. You know what I mean? I'm like, uh-oh. What does that do? I think that's fine. Okay, if the audio is fucked up, you guys, we're going to have to scream. Anyways, it's surprising as to like what's coming up for me. Again, some good, some bad, but regardless of if it's good or bad, it's interesting. And like, I definitely am noticing some tendencies of mine that I'm like, oh, I wish I wasn't like that. So we're unlearning. I might talk about that a little bit later, but we're working on ourselves. I don't want to talk about it yet. It feels a little public to be doing that in this space right now. But yeah, it also feels really good to be acting at like 29 versus 22, which is probably the last time I acted, like professionally, like paid act. So it feels good because I just feel like older and wiser and just like I get it more. I get that acting is a creative construct, you know, and like you get in there and you work and then you leave. Like I just can conceptualize things a lot easier, and I just really like being able to act in that way. And again, like just like more of a lived experience. So yeah, would recommend not acting until you're 30. And yeah, I think that's it. Oh, and last thing I was going to say is it just feels really good to be learning acting outside of a university setting. Like I don't think that acting should be taught in any like really bold, risky way with anyone until they're like out of school. I think doing it in a school environment with teachers who might not be the most responsible, and I am talking from experience on this. I've had some great professors and I've had some really bad people, you know, in that professor role before. So I don't know, between the fact that like you kind of need to live a lot of your life to like know how to act certain things and have certain nuances in your performance, and the fact that like a university setting where everyone's like still only like these super young adults, like basically kids, you know what I mean? Like 20 years old, 19 years old, and they're all in class together for 4 years, and they're all like exploring themselves and knowing each other for like way too intimately for four years. Like so much goes wrong, and I'm just like, I don't think we need to be doing that. It doesn't seem super constructive, and it seems really dangerous, and it seems like it turns a lot of people off. So maybe one day we'll all revolutionize the acting education system in America, but until then, let's talk about Apple, because Apple is getting sued. And I have to laugh a little bit because this happened a week after I put out my like dumb phone journey video of like trying to buy a dumb phone in 2024 and like what that was like for me. If you haven't watched the video, I would say go watch it. I'm proud of it. It's a video that like was very unscripted. I filmed it once and I was like way too intense about it. So I recorded it again. It was a little bit relaxed, you know, yawned. It was a little more sleepy, and it was good. It was chill, and I'm proud of it. But Apple's getting sued. The Justice Department and 16 state attorneys are, let's see, I wrote it down. They are claiming Apple violated antitrust laws. So there's an article in the New York Times that I'm going to pull a couple lines from, that was written by David McCabe and Trip Mickle. Crazy names. But yeah, U.S. sues Apple, accusing it of maintaining an iPhone monopoly. The lawsuit caps years of regulatory scrutiny of Apple's wildly popular suite of devices and services, which have fueled its growth into a nearly $3 trillion public company. Bro, the way I was so ahead of my time with this, a whole week ahead of my time. Let's see what else we can see. The government argued that Apple violated antitrust laws by preventing other companies from offering applications that compete with Apple products like its digital wallets, which would diminish the value of the iPhone. Apple's policies hurt consumers and smaller companies that compete with some of Apple's services, according to experts from the lawsuit released by the government, which was filed in the U.S. District Court for the District of New Jersey. Yes. Literally, yes. I'm going to continue on, and then we'll kind of like talk about it a little bit more in my own words. But they also write, the company, quote unquote, company undermines the ability of iPhone users to message with owners of other types of smartphones, like those running the Android operating system. The government said that divide, epitomized by the green bubbles that show an Android owner's messages, sent a signal to other smartphones were lower quality than the iPhone, according to the lawsuit. Apple has similarly made it difficult for the iPhone to work with smartwatches other than its own Apple Watch. Once an iPhone user owns an Apple Watch, it becomes far more costly for them to ditch the phone. This is a huge thing that, like, honestly was an impetus for me dropping the fucking iPhone. Obviously, I have a MacBook right here. I'm shooting on my iPad. I no longer have 2 camera angles, by the way, if you're watching, because I no longer have a camera on my phone. And if it did have a camera, I'm sure it would be a brutal little camera. So we're 1 cam now. We'll figure that one out later. It is so crazy to me that, like, some people have been responding to this lawsuit being like, well, like, you know, they're doing it because of security, or they just people are making a lot of excuses for Apple. and like defending Apple. And it's giving a kind of like brand loyalty that a company like Apple has very intentionally built. They have very intentionally built a level of brand loyalty that is so deep that when a government tries to come after a monopolistic company like Apple, it knows that it's like customers will ride or fucking die for them, which is part of the problem and is very scary. Yeah, and like when it comes to like it being costly for someone to ditch the iPhone, that was something I experienced. It was not only costly, but it was confusing and took a lot of time. So it was like costly in terms of money, but also in terms of time and energy, because I had to understand all of like the different parts of phone ownership that is not an iPhone, and losing certain like features and all this kind of stuff. And I am the green bubble person now, and every single one of my friends texts me and goes, why are our text messages green? And I go, sorry, not my fault. It's not the consumer's fault, right? It's just crazy when people are like saying it's like a security thing, because it's like, if anything, we should be, especially with Apple, their devices cost so much money. Yes, we have normalized that as a culture. No, phones shouldn't be that much money. And if they are, and I get why some of their models are like really nice, really great materials, really great product. But if we're paying that much money for a product, then it should work and be accessible across everything. If you're buying a premium experience, it should be able to translate across all operating systems and across all devices, not just Apple ones. Like, and then if it's a safety or security concern, well, then Apple should be working harder to make sure they're just as secure in family, in house, as they are with everything outside of their like network, outside of house. That's their job. That's their job to do that. You know what I mean? And I knew as soon as they started switching over to eSIMs, as soon as I found out that they had been switching over to eSIMs, and there's no way that you could have a physical SIM card, and their newest phones and every phone coming out after like the iPhone 12, so like 12, 13, 14, 15, and more phones, they will not have physical SIM cards, which means it is harder, more confusing, and more costly to find a phone. And two things. My brain just goes crazy about this because I think this is crazy. And I think this is very interesting. And I think this is the one thing the government's been doing lately where I'm like, you know what? Pop off. Protect the consumers, because we are not protecting ourselves because we're shilling out for Apple. Okay. Now I have to readjust. I just want my Owala. So it's like, if you wanted to switch over to a physical SIM card, you'd have to ditch any new iPhone model. So that's like a lifetime commitment. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be like, oh, I'm like never going to be allowed to have an iPhone again until they make a model with a physical SIM card slot, which they might start doing again. I doubt it, because I think they'd rather just keep iPhone users and keep them in a way where, like, for life. Once you have an eSIM, there's not like you just have these. I mean, it's just, I don't think I have to explain it. I think it's like pretty much clear that the corporate greed of Apple runs deep. And one phrase I did want to read from the lawsuit itself that the government said that David McCabe and Chip Mickle quoted in their article for the New York Times. I'm sorry, citing every source. It says, the government said in the lawsuit, said this: each step in Apple's course of conduct built and reinforced the moat around its smartphone monopoly. That is like so well said. And that to me is something that like is really, you cannot argue against that. Like, I'm sorry, you just cannot argue against that. They have been slowly widening and deepening the moat around their little Apple Store castle, made of all glass, probably, by the way, so that it is harder and harder and harder and harder to compete if you're trying to compete with an iPhone, and harder and harder and harder to get out if you're an Apple user. Okay. And I get that everything's convenient and I get that everything's integrated, but we have to think about the kind of power it has over our lives. And this is the perfect transition to start talking about my first week with a light phone. Because one thing I noticed is in this first week, especially in the first like 3 or 4 days, my anxiety was all over the place. And I felt like incredibly disoriented in my life from having a light phone. Not from having a light phone, from not having an iPhone, I should say. Excuse me, sorry. So that was scary because I never want my emotional state of being to be so gripped by a corporation, right? And that's also kind of what happened with me with Star Wars a little bit, just in terms of like Star Wars didn't do anything wrong, but like, how much can you get like casual death threats online because you're the face of a company who's not paying you or doing anything for you really. So like, yeah, it's just sort of like power to the people moment. Don't let corporations run your life. And you know what? To the Star Wars haters out there that are hating all over the Acolyte, maybe don't let them run your life. Maybe just fucking relax. You know what I mean? Anyways, okay, so, so that was an interesting with the light phone, but let's get into officially, now this is the official light phone section, sorry. Like I said, it's been a long week, and I have a lot of thoughts about this, and I'll probably like continue to have like little light phone updates on the pod, because I think that like it's literally only been a week, maybe 8 days, and as I use it, I find that there are like more and more things that I notice or that I love or that I don't love. Like there's just more to it. So if you want to hear more light phone updates as I use it, let a girl know. Let me know in the comments. So first of all, I want to say that yes, like I said, there's a little bit of anxiety and like disorientation over not having a smartphone because we're so used to having these smartphones as assisted living devices. But overall, like in all honesty, this has not been as drastic of a lifestyle change as I anticipated it to be. I was like so nervous about it. And like after those first 3 days, it's fine. Like it's not a big deal. Like it's crazy how much easier it is than you would think. And the reason I bring that up is because part of the reason why I almost didn't do the light phone thing was because I was like, scared. I was fully scared. I was nervous to do it. I don't think there's that much to be nervous about. And I think that there is a natural human intuition that kicks in, and you're good. You're going to be good. If you ever decide to make the switch to a dumb phone, you'll be good. There have been a couple moments where it has gotten in the way, the dumb phone thing. But most of those are like my own fault, right? So one of them was, oh my God, you guys, it was so bad. So first of all, like my gym, like normally you check in with the app and you book classes on the app. I no longer can do that. So, and they don't have any schedule or anything online. So I have to check in at the front desk with my phone number. That's fine. They don't give you physical cards. Weird, but that's fine, I guess. Cut your costs where you can, I guess. And then like for like classes, they have to print out a schedule. And then I take it home. And then if I want to book one of the classes, I call them and I have them book me into the class. That's interesting. Not very convenient. But the real rub comes from me forgetting my wallet. I'm allowed to say this online. I forgot my wallet. Let's say this. I got to the gym and realized I didn't have my wallet. And when you get to the gym, you park in a parking structure. That's a paid parking structure. It's validated, but it still costs like $3. It costs $3. So on my way out, I'm realizing, oh shit, I have I don't have my card, so I can't pay for that $3, right? So then I get in my car. I try to keep a little bit of emergency cash, not a lot, but a little bit of emergency cash in the car, right? For situations like this. And thank God I did. I mean, I only had like $7, but it was 4 more than what I needed. So I take out 3 single dollar bills. And then I'm like, oh, let me go pay the thing. It doesn't take cash. And it doesn't take card. But here's the real gag. if I had a smartphone, it didn't even take Apple Pay. So this really has nothing to do with the light phone. But it was a scary feeling because I was like that. I mean, I guess like with the light phone, I realized I'm like, oh, I like need to have my wallet on me at all times because I no longer have Apple Pay to bail me out of situations. I ended up like calling for help, but then they like let me out and then have my phone number, my license plate, and then they like sent me a link to pay online. So that was cool, I guess. But it's just also like it's crazy to me that like cash wasn't going to get me anywhere in that situation. And then it really makes you question the value of like money. Like it's like, so this really is just paper. This really is just paper because it's not doing anything for me. I might as well like blow my nose in it. So anyway, $3 is still in my car. So in case of emergencies. So that, yeah, not really light phone related, but just like a crazy little world we live in moment. You know what I mean? Crazy little world. But yeah, I definitely need to like carry my wallet around with me a lot more because I don't have the safety blanket of Apple Pay. But also, by the way, I didn't really use Apple Pay that much until the pandemic. I use it every once in a while in 2019, but like not at all, like barely at all. And it's just funny because I was thinking about it. I'm going to save so much fucking money probably from having this phone. The way I don't just like put in online orders for things, whether it's like ordering snacks or ordering a meal or ordering like, I don't know, Amazon or something. It's like, I'm not ordering anything. And I'm not like, again, there was a time where I went to go grab something down the street and then I wanted to get coffee on the way back, but I couldn't get coffee on the way back. Why? Because I didn't have my phone or wallet. No, I had my phone, but it wasn't a smartphone, and I did not have my wallet. So then I was like, well, I literally have nothing to buy a coffee with, so I guess I won't buy a coffee. Save some money there. I'm just saying that shit adds up. So another thing too that I was going to say is like this phone, the light phone does not have a camera. I don't miss the camera as much as I thought I would. I do kind of miss like sending and receiving pictures. And there's like every once in a while, I like miss taking a picture to send it to someone to like laugh about something or like, you know, reference something that we were talking about. But I really don't, it doesn't matter as much as I thought it would. And I think that's really interesting. And like, I look back at like my iPhone and it's like 30,000 pictures, like some crazy amount of pictures. And I think that I do question if we as a culture have like hyped ourselves up and like gaslit ourselves to thinking that like photos matter more than they do. I think photography matters as an art form. And like taking pictures for memories matters. It is on an individual level, you know, across the board. But do we need to have, you know, the best camera? I don't think so. Do we have to have a camera? I don't think so. I kind of think that we over-identify with having, you know, tens of thousands of photos on our iPhone as a way to sort of like categorize, like archive our lives and give them meaning. Instead of realizing, oh, I'm not, you know, my life, just because I have all these pictures of things I've done, doesn't make me cool or exciting. It does not mean I have like a valid existence because I've done all these things that I can see right here in my photo library. And one day I do hope there's a study done on that because we all have far too many photos on our phones and none of us look at them. And if we do look at them, I mean, we look at them and then what? You know what I mean? I don't know. So I'm just saying, like, for someone who like really was like worried about not having a phone on their camera, I'm chilling. QR codes are different. I need I do feel like a freaking clown every time I sit down for dinner and I have to like ask to borrow my friend's phone to look at the menu. Hate that. But it does lead. I'm so tired, you guys. It's also been like such crappy weather. Like just crappy, cold, gray weather. Anyways, it's led to really interesting conversations. Speaking of like dinners, you know, sitting down and like, you know, putting your phone and wallet on the table or asking to borrow someone's phone to read the menu, which is crazy. But it leads to cool conversations. Like every single person I've hung out with this past week has asked me questions about it. And like I was leaving class last night and there's like little lockers in the back and this girl goes like, "What is that?" I was like, just grabbing me his stuff. And I go, "Oh, it's my phone." And she was like, no way you got one of those. She said, I'll never forget. She says, you got one of those non-phone phones or unphones. She's like, you got one of those unphones. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but yes, I did. And it was so funny because like, then it's like everyone just like was like, tell us about it. And I was like, honestly, like, I'm down for this. Like, I don't want to be that person who's like evangelical about it. But I do believe that everyone should be experimenting with how they engage with tech in a risky. I think they should take a risk in their experimenting of how they engage with tech. I think that everyone should be pushing themselves to better understand the relationship to technology. And I think that sort of the self scrutinization and self exploration has never been more important in terms of like, we have so much tech around us that we really need to be real about like how much we need and how much we don't need. Trying to live a little bit more digitally minimal is an important thing, especially as like our world is hurtling towards less human culture, like human. It just feels like the world is a little bit less human centric, a little bit less human focused, and much more focused on tech and much more focused on like just sort of like intensity girly pops. And I think we need to be unplugging a little bit because I think it's good for us. But I'm not saying you have to stay that way forever, but I think again, it's just worth exploring. Anyway, so I told them, I was like, yeah, I don't want to be weird about it, but like if you guys do want to talk about it, come to me and we'll talk about it. Like, I love talking about this shit. And that's why I was like excited to talk about it on the podcast. I find it very interesting to talk about. I find it very valuable to talk about. And I mean, I learn things and whoever's talking about it, everyone's learning things. You know what I mean? Because the smartphone design has peaked and like the smartphones are as smart as they'll get. And I think we're now catching up to them a little bit socially where we're like really questioning it. And I think, yeah, it's so funny. There were like maybe 4 people plus the coach that were talking to me about the phone last night at the end of class. And I think out of the 4 of them, 2 or 3 were like, oh, I've like been considering doing something like that. And I'm like, it's not that scary. Like, you should really consider it, you know? So it's kind of fun to talk about. It's fun to hear people's reasons as to why they would or would not make the switch and like unpack those, because a lot of them are totally valid and some of them are a little bit more like, some people like know they have a problem but don't care that they have a problem, and that's totally fine too. Like, I don't have any judgment towards anyone for it, because it is I'm well aware that like having a light phone is kind of fucking crazy, but it's not as crazy as I thought it would. But it is so funny because the girl I met, I was looking at the light phone for a while, and then I met this really cool young person. I shouldn't say girl. Met this new friend who had a light phone, and they pulled it out of their pocket, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I've been thinking about a light phone, and now that I'm like sitting here with someone who has one, I'm going to have to ask you every question I have about it. Like, we're going to have to get into it. And they were like, yeah, totally down to talk about it. Like, hit me with anything you got. And I was like, okay. And I asked all the questions I needed to ask before finally committing. And so it was really nice to be able to have that. So I want to be that for other people. But what's so funny looking back at it is like, they were super chill about it. They were very like, yeah, I mean, it's just like my phone. It's not that big of a deal. So like, I'll answer your questions, but it's like not that crazy, right? And it's funny because now I'm experiencing that after only a week of having it, with people like really reacting, and it's become such like a regular part of my life even after just 1 week. And again, this is to further emphasize the point that anyone can make this shift if they want to. It's actually not that hard. But like, people were having these big reactions to it yesterday, and I kind of was like, okay, it's like not that big of a deal, you know what I mean? It's like we all had these phones when we were 13 basically. So anyways, that was interesting. At least a lot of interesting conversations. Another thing is that like, I was watching an interview about like upcoming light phone updates. Ugh, the way they sound the same, light phone updates. And like, they put out a lot of regular software updates, and the company really gives a shit, dude. Like, it's so crazy. I have to take a sip of water. We're talking so much. Did you see that? Okay. the light phone puts out like so many regular updates to improve the software on the phone and constantly improve it without compromising like their values as a company, which is really cool. It's really, really amazing to have a product that is so cared for and so intentionally updated and like looked after. And I appreciate that. And then to hear what like the team is working on for the future is super exciting. It sounds like it's going to become more and more of a real viable option for people as they continue to like address things. I mean, the thing's been out for like, I think 8 years. I mean, a long time. But it's cool to be a part of a company who cares about the product. It's cool to be part of a company who cares about the customer, because there's been like 2 separate occasions where I needed to hit up customer service and they get back to me. Guys, I'm just making so many noises. I'm like yawning, choking. My mouth is dry. It's been such a long week. And customer service gets back to me like within the day, usually in a few hours, and is like so chill. Like they're like, oh yeah, like everyone asks that. Like you just do this, this, and this, and this. Or like I couldn't get my updates on the phone. I mean, couldn't get my contacts on the phone for some reason. And they're like, just send us your contacts. We'll do it for you remotely. And they like did it for me in like an hour. And so, I mean, like they're just cool. They're really, really cool. They also really care about sustainability. They don't want their phones landing in, ending up in a landfill, which is why they don't like constantly put out different models. Like they really care about the environment. And it's so crazy to hear. Joe Hollier, I think that's his name, is like one of the co-founders of Lightphone, and like it's so crazy to hear like what goes into trying to like get a new product on the line in terms of a cell phone. It's fucking hard, dude. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get approved by a carrier. And that's for like one model, and I'm pretty sure, I don't think that's across all carriers. It might be, but like it just costs like so much money to work through like the bureaucracy of big phone tech, big carrier. And I freaking salute them for working as hard as they do to make it happen, and without compromising their values, and finding a way to like work within the system but still offer consumers a product that is competitive in its own way. So I think it's awesome. I would do anything. And you know what? I doubt Joe would ever talk about this publicly because he's chill and he's a good guy. He seems to be. But like I would love to know what the Lightphone office was like the other morning when the announcement of the Apple lawsuit went live. I would have loved to be there to hear their thoughts on that. I still would love to talk about it. But anyway, yeah, it's cool. It's an interesting thing because I'm in a place where I'm really examining where I over-identify and where I just sort of like identify. So it's like I used to over-identify with Star Wars, and now I'm like, oh, I like Star Wars, but it's like it's not my whole personality, right? It just happens to be a one part of my personality. So with the Lightphone, when I was doing research on it, like, and this is fine, like this isn't like this is not supposed to be as judgmental as it might sound. It's really not judgy at all, I promise. I sound so judgy by even saying that. But when you look up reviews, it's like kind of like these guys, like these hipsters who are using the Lightphone, either because it's like a shtick and it's like a gimmick, or because they are like really hipster and off the grid. And like, that's cool. That's fine. But like, I don't ever want to come across as like any type of way with using one, and I don't want to over-identify as someone who uses one, right? Like the second the Lightphone becomes too much of my personality, I'm gonna have to throw it in the fire, and I'm gonna have to switch back to another kind of phone, because I just don't want it to become, I want it to be a part of my life and a part of my decision making, and that I'm very proud of, and I feel really good using a phone that lines up with my values as a person and as a consumer. That is a really cool thing, but I would never want to like over-identify with it, you know what I mean, or have it become like my entire personality, or even a big portion of it. So that's like another interesting thing that has been coming up. I will say the keyboard is hard. The keyboard is not very easy to type on. I'm slowly getting better at it, but there's definitely typo vibes. The speech to text is good, but like I don't even think fast enough for like it types faster than how I'm thinking. And if I take a pause, it like puts a period there because it thinks I'm like done with the sentence, which is funny, but it's not like practical. So the keyboard is a little bit hard, but what's actually really cool about that, and I know I might sound crazy for saying this, but I don't mean to say like what's cool about texting being difficult, but also like, yeah, I do mean that. I mean, I think that, listen, again, the smartphones today are made to be so easy to use that we use them all the time. If they were to make them a little bit smaller or more difficult to use, we would spend less time on them, meaning we would have less of a reliance on them in our daily lives, less brand loyalty, and less data for them to mine, by the way. So I do appreciate the fact that it's a little bit harder to text, or at least if I'm texting, it takes a lot of focus. Like I have to dedicate myself to sending a text. And especially if it's a long text, like I have to be like, this is what I'm doing. I am sending a text message. So there's a certain awareness and a presence that happens in sending a text now, which is nice. But like, for example, I was walking the dog, and normally like I'll shoot a text for sure when I'm walking the dog if I had my iPhone, because it's so easy. But walking the dog now, I'll like reach for my phone to send a text or respond to someone, and then I'll realize, oh, like this is too hard to send right now, so I'm not going to send it. So I put my phone back in my pocket and I just enjoy the walk. So it's like there is an element to the phone that is built to keep you. It's, you know, they say on the website it's designed to be used as little as possible, and it is, and that's cool. And in the first couple days I had the light phone, I noticed sort of like I would spend a lot more time on my iPad because I guess like it was my way of like soothing myself from not having an iPhone. I was like, oh, I just have my iPad, which is like a big iPhone. So it's like I still have an iPhone. And since then I've like really weaned off the iPad. I really do a bang up job of leaving the iPad on the opposite side of like the apartment, and like I can't, like I don't have access to grab it as easily. But what was I saying? I was talking about it's like easy to use. It's easy to like use it less. Oh yeah, but then I started using my iPad more. Now I'm good at not using my iPad. I've really turned the corner on that. But it is interesting. Like I feel like time is moving slower, and I know that sounds crazy. It might sound like a little romantic, but I do feel like time is like, I feel like I have more time. I don't think I have like even more time to like take up a whole new craft yet, but I do feel like I'm on top of my time a little bit more. I feel a little bit more aware of time. Like my relationship to time is definitely changing a little bit, which is interesting. And yeah, I've just been using my phone less. And it's interesting too, because I'm the type of person where like, I've always hated texting. I've noticed that since using the light phone, I hate texting less, which I thought I was going to hate it more because it's going to be harder to text. But because it's harder to text, I almost like it more, because I really decide in a moment if I'm going to like if the conversation is naturally dying out, like, and it's too hard to respond, I'm like, it's too hard to respond. I'm just not going to respond. Like not in a way where I'm like leaving my friends on red and being an asshole, but in a way where I feel like a little bit more empowered to just like not use my phone. I feel empowered to not respond to a text message and just fucking relax and not text someone, which feels really good. And another thing too, I'm noticing is like, I usually take a long time to get back to people on text, but I've been getting back to people a lot quicker on this phone. And I think part of that is because I'm spending less time on the device in total. So I have more like phone, internal battery power, I should say, to use the phone to text people back within a regular amount of time, versus like if I was a smartphone, like I was on that shit, not all the time. Like I think this is so important. Like I did not have a phone addiction problem in any extreme way. I think most smartphone users have phone addiction problems that they're not aware of or that aren't enough to warrant a lifestyle change for them, which I totally respect and totally understand, because that's where I was at. Like, I didn't have like a problem with my phone, but also like, it's not like I wasn't touching it. I had that thing on me all the time and like I would go on it. But anyways, my point about texting is like, because I'm spending less time looking at a screen, when it's time to look at a screen to respond to a text, I mind it less, because I think I hated texting on a smartphone because I was already on the phone all the time. So then it's like, I do all this shit on my phone, and then it's like, now you're telling me I have to fucking text people back. Like, oh my God, like there's such an exhaustion there, where I don't have that now. Now it's like, I mean, I'm not on my phone unless I'm texting or calling. And so there's a lot more energy I have to text people back, even though it's harder to do it. So that's another interesting thing. It's been fun. It's been really fun. I have to say, it's been a really fun experiment. And I'm still trying to sell my old iPhone, which is so annoying because it's like such a nice phone. It's in perfect condition and it's just not selling, but I don't want to go on Craigslist. So I'm just Facebook marketing placing it up. That's kind of it. I mean, I don't really think there's anything else I have to talk about. If anyone has any questions about anything I've talked about for the past 40 minutes, let me know. But yeah, especially specifically about the light phone. If you want me to keep talking about it, if you want me to fucking drop it and shut up, I could do that too. Yeah, it's been fun. I'm very happy with it. I'm proud of myself too. It's definitely like a leap of faith type of a lifestyle change. My therapist was like, oh my God, that's like a big change. I was like, yeah, it is kind of crazy, but also no, it's not. Like it actually wasn't. And people look at you when you have the light phone, like I did to that friend I met at the bar who had one before I did. And you look at that person like, that's crazy. I want to make it very clear it's not crazy. So on that note, thank you for watching the podcast. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I have fun with these. I hope you have fun with these. I hope that this was a valuable or entertaining conversation. Share it with a friend. Because I'm not online, I don't get the algorithm thing. So if you love it and you think that a friend would be interested, you should send it to them. Or you should come on YouTube and like and comment. There should also be like a comment section on Spotify if you're listening to Spotify. Oh, no. Listen. I take it all back. Review the pod. Please review the pod. Like a little 5-star moment. Write up a little review with your own words. That'd be very helpful. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I love you and I appreciate it. And I'll either be back next Friday or next Saturday or the Saturday after. And yeah, I hope you're having a good day wherever you are listening. And thank you for watching.